Okay, I hope you have seen part one explanation video of this complicated essay by Pico Iyer. Let's get started with part two without wasting any time. This is what Camus meant when he said that what gives value to travel is fear. Albert, the weird part is that the T in Albert and S in Camus are both silent. So it Albert Camus. Okay. I've never been able to understand why do they have this alphabets if it is supposed to be silent. Anyway, so this is what Camus meant when he said that what gives value to travel is fear. Disruption, in other words, or emancipation. Disruption means you are used to a certain set or a lifestyle that you lead. When you travel, there is a disruption, there is a difference, there is a slight movement from that set of habits that you follow on a daily basis. So sometimes what happens is that you fear what will happen when you travel because you know that that will be disrupted. So that is what, according to him, gives value to travel, because the fear of the unknown, that you do not know what really to expect. And that is what many of us travel, not in search of answers, but of better questions. Okay, that you seek questions. You're not looking only for answers, but also questions. I, like many people, tend to ask questions of the places I visit and release the most the ones that ask the most searching questions back of me. The ideal travel book. So you are asking questions. Okay, you asking questions when you travel to new places. Christopher Isherwood once said, should be perhaps the ideal travel book should be perhaps like a little like a crime story in which you are in search for something. And when you are in search for something, what do? You ask questions. You understand? So this is an interesting paragraph about why do you ask questions, and you link it to the crime story, because when you want to discover the who committed the crime, what would you do? You would ask questions, right? And it's the best kind of something. I would add, if it is one that you can never quite find, if you do not find the answers either. I remember, in fact, after my first trips to Southeast Asia more than a decade ago, how I would come back to my apartment in New York and lie in my bed, kept up by something more than jet lag, playing back in my memory over and over all that I had experienced, and paging wistfully through my photographs and reading and rereading my diaries. बाप रे, ये full stop क्यों नहीं लगाते यार? As if to extract some mystery from them. Anyone witnessing this strange scene would have drawn the right conclusion. I was in love. That is, when you keep looking at pictures and keep rewinding the memories, people would think that you are in love, because you are kind of still in that world. You have come back physically, but mentally you are still there in that world which you travel to. When you go abroad, when we go abroad, is that we are objects of scrutiny as much as the people we scrutinize. That is, you are looking at the people there, the locals there. The locals are also looking at you, because for them, you are the strange object. And we are being consumed by the cultures we consume as much on the road as we are at home. At the very least, we are objects of speculation and even desire, who can seem as exotic to the people around us as they do to us. For instance, when Europeans or Americans come visiting India, and they go to different parts of India, when they go there, they look at Indians, because for them, Indians are looking very different from how they look, right? Our way of culture is very different from their way of leading life. So everything in that sense becomes an object of scrutiny. Scrutiny means dhyan purvak dekhna. All in that sense believed in being moved as one of the points of taking trips and being transported in private, by private as well as public means. All saw that ecstasis, which is it is a pun where ecstasy, the word meaning, where puns are essentially when two similar sounding words are used in place of each other, in usually to create some kind of humor. Tells us that our highest moments come when we are not stationary, and that epiphany can follow movement as much as it precipitates it. Epiphany is a moment of realization. So he's saying that, when we are not stationary, means when we are moving, when we are traveling, that's when the moment of realization actually dawns upon us. We become more aware. When you go to a McDonald's outlet in Kyoto, in Japan, you will find teriyaki burgers and bacon potato pies. The placemats offer maps of the great temples of the city, and the posters all around broadcast the wonders of San Francisco. So there is it, what we keep talking about in terms of a global village. And most crucial of all, the young people eating their Big Macs with baseball caps worn backwards and tight 501 jeans are still utterly and inalienably Japanese in the way they move, they nod, they sip their oolong teas, and never to be mistaken for the patrons of a McDonald's outlet in Rio, Morocco, or Managua. So basically saying that the cross-cultural infiltration have happened so much that you would find American influence among Japanese youngsters in Japan, in a place like Kyoto. Similarly, you would find it in a McDonald's outlet in Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil, or in Morocco, or in Managua. So there is that intermingling of cultures which is taking place. These days, a whole new realm of exotica arises out of the way one culture colors and appropriates the products of the other. So we tend to the McDonaldization of food to a large extent, that you find these kind of outlets. For instance, you find McDonald's outlets in different cities in India. Now, is it a natural food? No, it is not. But we have kind of adapted to it, because when we go out of the country, we go to US, we go to Europe, we find that, okay, McDonald's burgers, etc., are quite popular out there. So that's why McDonald's decided to come into India as well. So there is that kind of assimilation and kind of intermingling of different kind of cultures. And most of the times it starts with food, because food becoming a common point of interest. The other factor complicating and exciting all of this is people who are more and more themselves as many-tongued and mongrel as cities like Sydney or Toronto or Hong Kong. Now, many-tongued is people who can speak many languages. Mongrel is a mixed breed dog. That is mongrel. Many-tongued is someone who can speak different languages. I am in many ways an increasingly typical specimen. So now he's talking about himself, and I've written an answer on this. Only because I was born as a son of Indian parents in UK, in England, moved to America at the age of 7, and cannot really call myself an Indian, an American, or an Englishman. So he's an assimilation of 3 different kinds of cultures: British, American, and Indian. I was, in short, a traveler at birth, for whom even a visit to the candy store was a trip through a foreign world where no one I saw quite matched my parents' inheritance, because if he was in America, they did not look like his parents did. Or his own looks. Besides, even those who don't move around the world find the world moving more and more around them. Walk just 6 blocks in Queens or Berkeley, and you are traveling through several cultures in as many minutes. That is, even in the same city, you will find, the cultures, the way of talking, etc., changing even within a city. That's what he's trying to point out. He says that if you get into a taxi outside the White House in Washington, D.C., and if the taxi is being driven by an Afro-American, right, you could be in part of Addis Ababa, which is in Ethiopia. So you kind of interact with a piece of Ethiopia, because you are sharing the same cab space with that taxi driver who comes from Addis Ababa. And technology too compounds this sense of availability, so that many people feel they can travel around the world without leaving the room through cyberspace. And now, with the help of technology, you can actually travel through different continents and countries. CD-ROMs, videos, and virtual travel. There are many challenges in this, of course, in what it says about essential notions of family and community. Of course, there are challenges to the way technology will be used, and in the worry that air-conditioned, purely synthetic versions of places may replace the real thing, not to mention the fact that the world seems increasingly in flux, a moving target quicker than our notions of it. So, there is a sense of, the world is quickly moving. It is in flux, constantly changing. The changes are very frequent, right? So there is a sense of flux, whereas you are also trying to experience different emotions by traveling to different places. But there is, for the traveler, at least the sense that learning about home and learning about a foreign world can be one and the same thing. That even while you are at home, you can actually learn about a foreign location. All of us feel this from the cradle and know in some sense that all the significant movement we ever take is internal. So all this is about the mind. You're internalizing everything: what you see, what you smell, what you hear, what you taste, what you speak to with different people. All this is about the 5 senses, and all this is being stored in your mind space. Uh, we travel when we see a movie, strike up a new friendship. You meet someone, let's say from Egypt. You get to know their country. It is kind of getting stored in your mind. You see a movie which has been shot abroad, even if it is an Indian movie, has been shot abroad. You see all the locations. You feel as though you have been transported to that place. Novels are often journeys. So is the case with books. Novels are often journeys as much as travel books are fiction. And though this has been true since at least as long ago as John Mandeville's colorful 14th century accounts of a Far East he had never visited, it's an even more shadowy distinction now as genre distinctions join other borders in collapsing. So it is not just travel books that tell you about a new place. Even novels transport you to a new place because of the manner in which they are describing a particular place or the people in that particular place. Travel then is a voyage into that famously subjective zone, the imagination. And what the traveler brings back is and has to be an ineffable, that is too extreme to be expressed in words. You cannot describe it in words. Compound of himself and the place. That sometimes you are unable to describe what your experience was in that new place, what is really there and what is only in him. And since travel is in a sense about the conspiracy of perception and imagination, what a beautiful line. Travel is a conspiracy कि दोनों के बीच में मिली भगत है. किन दोनों के बीच में? आपकी इमेजिनेशन के बीच में and what you perceive. आपने जो perceive किया और क्या imagine किया उसके बीच में मिली भगत है travel. Okay, to whom I constantly return are Emerson, and the two great travel writers are Emerson and Thoreau. The one who famously advised that traveling is a fool's paradise, and the other who traveled a good deal in Concord. Okay, so he's talking about these two authors. Most of them insist on the fact that reality is our creation and that we invent the places we see as much as we do the books that we read. When you read a book, you get transported to that place based on the quality of the description the author or the novelist has written. What we find outside ourselves has to be inside ourselves for we to find out. Or as Sir Thomas Browne sagely put it, sagely means very wisely put it, we carry within us the wonders we seek without us. There is Africa and her prodigies in us. That is, if we have read something about Africa or seen a movie about Africa or travel to any part of Africa, we carry all that within us. So we carry within us the wonders we seek without us. These are all the wonders. Okay, so it's a reminder that the things we seek outside of ourselves can also be found within us. So what Thomas Browne is suggesting is that we carry within us the wonders of the world and that we can find Africa and her prodigies within us. Okay, so basically to try to say that you kind of experience the entire potential of the world, be it Africa or Asia or Europe or America, right? The diversity of the cultures, the different way different people react and interact with each other. So if more and more of us have to carry our sense of home inside us, we also, Emerson and Thoreau remind us, have to carry with us our sense of destination. The most valuable Pacifics we explore will always be the vast expanses within us, So now he's getting very abstract. Very abstract. Pacific, he's referring to the ocean itself. So this is the most valuable ocean that we explore will be the vast expanse within us, the expanse of the water. He's trying to make a correlation there. And the most important northwest crossings, the threshold we cross in the heart. The virtue of finding a gilded means gold. Gilded, the word comes from the word gold. Gilded pavilion in Quito is that it allows you to take back a more lasting private golden temple to your office in Rockefeller Center. So in the USA, the memory of having visited that gilded temple allows you to take memories of a golden temple to your office in Rockefeller Center. And even as the world seems to grow more exhausted, our travels do not. And some of the finest travel books in recent years have been those that undertake a parallel journey, matching the physical steps of a pilgrimage with the metaphysical steps of a questioning or chronicling a trip to the farthest reaches of human strangeness. Okay. So it is not just travel tips or what you see physically, but what it does to your mind, what is the kind of experience that you can actually have if you visit that particular place, okay, through the chronicles that the author will describe. The most distant shores we are constantly reminded live within the person asleep at our side, So it's like, the experience of something which you are able to discover. It's quite possible that the person sitting next to us lying asleep, you may not know anything at all about us. That may be very distant, but you could always experience something even if you don't travel through a book or through a movie. So in Oliver Sacks' Island of the Colorblind, which features a journey not just to a remote atoll. Atoll is an island which is shaped like a ring in the Pacific, but to a realm where people actually see light differently. So you're talking about a very micro detail about how people see light differently in that particular, on those particular islands in the Pacific Ocean. So you can kind of experience that. And it's quite possible that the person who is sleeping asleep next to you, you may be feeling extremely distant from that person. So travel at heart is just a quick way to keep our minds mobile and awake. So what he's advocating is that this is how travel should be, that it should keep your minds mobile and it should keep it awake. As Santana, the heir to Emerson, and heir means, the same style of writing, with whom I began, wrote, there is wisdom in turning as often as possible from the familiar to the unfamiliar. It keeps the mind nimble. Nimble means, quick. Okay, it kills prejudice and it fosters humor, that you are able to see wit in it. You're able to enjoy the different experiences and you don't feel prejudice. Oh, dark skinned, brown skinned people do not feel anti a particular kind of skin or the way people eating habits are or the way people look and behave. Romantic poets inaugurated an era of travel because they were great apostles. Apostles means, supporters of open eyes. Buddhist monks are often vagabonds because they keep traveling from one place to another, in part because they believe in wakefulness, because they believe that's how you get awakening. Okay, spiritual awakening, because when you travel from one place to another, experience different kind of cultures, that's how you get awakened. And if travel is like love, it is in the end mostly because it's an heightened state of awareness. Okay, that you are more aware. It's like love. So he's making the comparison between travel and love, in which we are mindful, receptive, undimmed by familiarity, and ready to be transformed, that we are willing to embrace transformation. हम ये नहीं कह रहे हैं कि हम बदलेंगे नहीं, हम यात्रा करके बदल सकते हैं, because that's how the different cultures and the different experiences can touch you. That is why the best trips, like the best love affairs, never really end, because even after the trip ends, you carry a part of it in your mind and you keep rewinding it and enjoying the experience, and as a result of which you are a changed person. Just like when you are in love, the other person influences your behavior, your personality, your character, your way of thinking and behaving. Similarly, travel can also have a similar experience, similar impact on any person. Okay, so with this we come to the end of this essay. I hope समझ में आया. जो समझ में नहीं आया, doubts पूछो. I'm not saying it's an easy essay. It is quite complicated, and as I said, any doubts please ask, but I'm not expecting you to be asked complicated questions from this one, because that's the way your paper is structured. So you don't really need to worry too much about this very complicated 2 chapters, the new dress and this particular why we travel. These are really complicated chapters, because the way your question paper is structured, it's not like they're going to ask you intricacies, but agar पूछे तो उसके लिए सारे नोट्स और क्वेश्चन आंसर्स को पढ़ लीजिए. You'll be able to understand everything. Okay, tata, bye bye.